afternoon, and welcome to the 11th workshop of Thrive, a Grad Partners initiative. Today, we have with us national winner of Wipro B-PRO Season 3 Challenge, Vaibhav Sharma from IIM Lucknow and Prakhar Raizada from IIM Lucknow. So, I would like to hand over this stage to you guys, and I would like to you to tell a brief about yourselves, whatever you have accomplished in your B school journey, and your journey related to Wipro B-PRO challenge. Over to you guys.
Yeah. Thanks, Abhay, for the kind introduction. Hi, everyone. This is Prakhar Raizada. I, along with Vaibhav Sharma and one of our teammates, Pragati Seni, won the Wipro B-PRO 3.0 last year. So, a brief introduction about ourselves. I did my bachelor's in economics and finance from HKU, followed by a master's in economics, and finally an IIM Lucknow MBA. During my MBA, I was a summer associate at McKinsey, and I've started working at the CEO's office at IFL. Vaibhav did his BTech from PEC and then did his MBA from IIM Lucknow. Previously, he was a consultant at O9 Solutions, and now he's developing strategy for Misho. So now coming on to the major questions of why case competitions, what are case competitions? So case competitions are basically competitions organized by either colleges or corporates where they give a problem statement which is mimicking a real life problem statement of the company, and then you as team members have to develop a strategy and then present it to the senior leadership if you go through the subsequent rounds, right? So what are the major three ingredients of an important case winning PPT or a tech? First is of course a team composition and dynamic. It's the utmost of importance that you have the right team members with you. I was lucky to find two other teammates during my journey at IIM Lucknow, because one might be important for making case decks and PPTs. One might be important for doing research. One is doing a lot of important stuff in terms of communication or networking or primary research, right? So these kind of dynamics and team composition is important to bring variety of thoughts into the case deck. Second, and actually the crux of the case competitions, which from a judge's perspective is case analysis and problem solving, whether you are reading the case prompts correctly and interpreting them in the right way, and how to structurally go towards a problem solution in depth and then solve it in a structured manner. And last is of course your communication skills, both verbal and written communication skills in terms of PPT and the solution how you present it. This is just the slide to find the right bunch of idiots for the case competition. One is, of course, that you have to have multiple iterations of team members who you work with before actually finding the right people, and then you continue on the journey. The second is, of course, from a perspective of variety of experiences. So I come from an economics background, Vaibhav comes from a BTech background, he comes from a logistics background at O9, whereas I come from Fitch, where I was doing finance, right? So different perspectives, different life experiences come together to form the right PPT and the right solution, right? So that is important. So this is the slide on the team composition and how to find that. I think that's the journey that you do before actually winning the case competition, one of the case competitions. Now I come to the main thing where why we are here. One is of course the Wipro B-PRO. So there is a 5-round structure of this case competition. One is of course an online business quiz that happens on different platforms. You qualify, some of the candidates get filtered, teams get filtered out and qualify for the next round, which is the executive summary. Executive summary is basically the questions throughout the presentation or throughout the competition remain the same. There were five questions, but in the executive summary you just give a brief about what you are thinking, and a summary in just 2 slides. Of course annexures can be there, but some competitions allow annexures, some competition don't. And then once you qualify from round 2, which is actually the major hurdle where you have to put a lot more effort. So the efforts in making a two slider are actually more than the effort, or actually equal than the efforts to put the 10 slider, because you have to actually think the whole solution throughout and then make it in a structure that you fit the whole solution in two slides. Then the round three was a detailed submission where you stretch your solution, you deep dive into the solutions, you actually go into the deep dives of answering each and every questions in a structured format. Because you have 10 slides, you can make much more content on the questions. Round four was campus selection, and round five was the national presentation. So round four, round five, you can make certain iterations in Wipro B-Pro, but your detailed submission almost remains 90 to 95% remains the same. So round four, round five, test your communication skills and how you handle the Q&A from the judges, because the Q&A from the judges is from the senior leadership of Wipro who have actually spent a lot of time. So they know the nitty gritties of the solution that you are presenting, and most of the time they actually interrogate or ask your thought process of how you arrived at the solution and what were the alternative solutions that you considered which you rejected finally, right? So that is the thought process they ask you and that they really like. So Q&A in the presentation is actually very, very, very important. This is the slide on the problem solving from our perspective of how you can, some pointers. So, for example, you should actually read the case thoroughly and understand it fully, right? This is not just a normal reading of English of a few statements or questions. We actually mailed the Wipro team to understand and get some clarifications on some of the questions. So, that is actually really important. And then make the all four five questions in a Q&A answer, but also have an overall structure ready so that the presentation or the deck of the PPT flows in a structured manner, right? So it's not just first question, first answer, for second question, second answer, right? You have to incorporate all the five answers in a structured manner so that the structure and the flow of the overall deck is actually great for people to understand, judges to understand, right? And for that, there's a lot of primary research, secondary research, expert interviews involved, right? Even in a normal consulting, you do expert interviews to actually get some more nuances and nitty gritties. And from our perspective also, we did some expert interviews. So we contacted our colleagues or our alums of our undergrads, or maybe colleagues of our first round network, to actually get to the required experts, and then conducted interviews and incorporated their views and suggestions into our solution, right? So these are 5 6 pointers of how to break down the solution, how to break down the problem statement, and then arrive at the solution, and then how to present it in a structured deck, right? And then constantly make iterations and improvements. So I'll hand over to Vaibhav. What we have done is we have also given a slide on the first questions so that you have a visibility on what kind of questions were asked, and then give our intention of how we went about those questions, and the final presentation deck regarding that question. On Over to you, Vaibhav.
Sure. So before I go into deep diving into each question, let me give you a bit of context about the case, right? So in the case, we have been given two startups, that is Alpha and Beta, and our goal is to either decide whether should we merge those startups or should we go ahead independently pursuing their own business models. So startup Alpha is more client centric, while startup Beta is more tech centric. And the first question was about whether should they build their capabilities and their technology separately, or should they collaborate in some way to utilize each other's strengths. And we were supposed to evaluate the pros and cons of this entire restructuring or the merger that has to be done, right? Moving to the next slide. Yeah, correct. So basically, we started with defining the key strengths of company Alpha and company Beta, right? As you can see, no framework has been used over here, right? So it is based on your understanding of the case that you're trying to understand what are the key strengths and challenges each of the startup may be facing, right? And then based on that information, you can decide what is the independent future strategy these independent startups should be taking, right? In the next step, as they have asked, we have compared both the models. How will a separate model look like, and how will a collaborative model work? And as asked in the question directly, we have mentioned pros and cons of both collaborative and the independent model, right? Finally, we have given a brief of the operating model in case they, go for a merger. What will a operating model look like for them? And additional details of the operating model are in the next slide. Yeah. We can go to the next slide, Prakhar. Cool. So as you can see, right, in this particular slide, we have dedicated the entire slide to operating model, right? Since in this particular case competition, 5 questions were given to us. That's why it is important for you to understand which are the more important questions, which are the less important questions, so that we can decide, which area to focus more on, right? As you can see, Wipro is a tech company, so the focus is definitely on AI, right? So as we go, over to the next slides, you will see that okay, there is a nuance of AI. AI has been focused on a lot, right? So now coming to, can we present the screen again?
Actually, due to some network issue from Prakhar's side, I think uh, he will join back. So meanwhile, we'll take the questions from participants. So one of the questions was, since Vaibhav, you have done so many case competition, been to the podium rounds of Tech and Wipro and other case competitions, right? So how were you able to manage the time, since this season we have so many case competitions lined up, and students are asking how can we prioritize these case competitions, and
So
we
correct.
have to get the right time.
Got it, right. So, number one, right, there are n number of things that will be going on in your B school, correct? Since both of us, were from I am Lucknow, it is known for its academic rigor, correct? So, you have to decide what is your priority, in different order of things, right? Whether you want to focus on sports, cultural clubs, etc., right? Or you want to focus on academics more, or maybe, you could take a balanced approach like me or Prakhar, right? So we both were, part of some clubs and committee. We did focus on academics a lot. Apart from that, both of us, decided to do case competitions together, and we also won a lot of case competitions, right? Now to prioritize different case competitions, right? You need to introspect, right? Which is the domain that you want to focus on, right? So as we can see, right, a lot of tech companies, they do case competitions, right? You'll find a lot of product management case competitions. Again, that is very niche, right? Not everyone will have a skill set in that, right? So you need to define if that is the track you want to take. A lot of FMCG companies, go for case competitions, correct? So marketing as a domain is not as technical compared to a product management, right? Where a different skill is required, right? Marketing is very much similar to strategy, right? A lot of case strategy case competitions would have element of marketing in them, right? So maybe you can put marketing as your second domain in that, right? So that way you can prioritize different domains that are there. And last thing, prioritizing among different case comps, right? A lot of case comps, they would be having a good prize money, or they would be
Mm,
having a good selection ratio, that a lot of people are being selected after semi-final round, right?
mm,
So you can check that, or maybe some case competitions like Wipro or Air India, they give PPIs after semi-final round. Right? So
mm,
17 teams, were in semi-finals from IIM Lucknow, while from other campuses there were 3-4 teams, right?
mm,
So a lot of people from those teams, they received a PPI, right? So based on
mm.
that, you can decide which case comps are more important, because a PPI is a good CV point, right? Or maybe a job opportunity for some. So based on that, you can decide. Last thing would be how much effort is required in a particular case competition. Based on that, you can take a final decision whether we should go ahead with it or we should leave it.
Okay. Prakhar, would you like to add on this, how to prioritize on different case competitions, since this season
I
there are
think
many.
something my answers could be similar to Vaibhav of how you prioritize. I mean, at the start of the MBA, I was dead sure of that case competition is something I wanted to explore. So that internal motivation is there. And when I started, you sort of start from a college case competitions because the effort and the effort required is on the lower end for those, and you also sort of start building your team and expertise in case competition. Then you move on to corporate case competitions in order to win corporate one, which are the major ones, right?
Okay, thank you. We can, I think, continue with the presentation and the solution.
Sure. Right. So, another part of the question was that, how will the companies look like after they have merged or if they decide to remain independent, right? So, our logic was that we are going to, merge both of the companies. There's going to be a merger, and we decided to look into how will the operating model look like. Now, this slide, it is up to you how you want to define the operating model, right? This is the structure that we have chosen, right? This is something that we have created ourselves, right? Maybe you could have taken an entirely different approach to this question, right? Maybe you could have skipped on the vision mission part. Maybe some other elements, strategic elements could have been added over there, right? But this is what we felt was the best. So for starters, if someone who don't know what an operating model is, or let's say you have some other topic which are not very familiar with, you can simply start by picking up the familiar keywords, start reading about those, and then based on that, as you read, you'll understand which are the more important elements, right? Let's say in operating structure, organization and governance, how the performance management looks like, what the tech stack of the company is going to be, right? And vision mission statements, they are really important for the company, right? So based on that, we just decided to prioritize which all important elements of our organizational structure we are going to keep in this slide, and we came up with the structure finally. Yeah. Now we can move to the next slide. Right. And since both of them are startup, we decided to give a more detail on the organizational structure, how the talent sourcing will work. We'll come to more detail on talent sourcing later also, and how the culture of the startup will look like. Right. So again, when we talk about the organizational structure, there could be different type of structures that are available. So we looked at different startups that are there, even based on our past experience. What all levels do they have? What all different roles are available? So it's simple, research from internet, or maybe you can talk to some people who are working in AI startups. How does the hierarchy looks like in your company? And based on that, we decided to have this four level, hierarchical structure, and added some more details about how will the organization look like. And then finally moving to the cultural aspect, how the skill development will work, how the talent sourcing will work. We even added a bit more detail on how the ESOP pool will look like, because that is one of the important aspect of the startup culture. So we can move to the next slide now. Correct. So both all of us felt that this is one of the most important question in this particular case study competition, right? And it is a really complex question, so you need to very carefully break it down, right? So I'll start by reading this question, and then we can break it down and come how we decided to create it into slide. How did we group different subtopics together, and how did we go about on our solution, right? So once we have finalized the structure, that is the organizational structure we presented, now we need to suggest a 5-year marketing roadmap to grow these companies to 5x and gain market share, right? So they wanted, to get a growth of 5x and gain some market share. However, no data was given to us, so we had to come up with our own assumptions while doing the calculations, right? Again, financial analysis is a very important part of case competitions. If even one of the team has done financial analysis like we had done it, right, the judges will start pointing out to other people that this is a missing piece in your case competition solution, or maybe the logic that you have used is very different from the logic which other team has used, and then the judges maybe will question either one of the team on that, right? This should also involve identifying areas that AI company wants to build expertise into by market sizing, target customer segments, value proposition, pricing model, distribution channel, and provide application into at least two sectors or companies. Right. So from this entire question, what we understood was that what is the first step over here, right? We can't directly go by answering the marketing roadmap directly, correct? We can't directly jump into the question. We need to structure. We need to arrange everything in order, right? So the first thing that is important is which is the technology the company should build, and then which products or which applications of those technologies the company should use. And next, we decided to go on about how will the product landscape look like for the company, how will the marketing evolve over the years, how will we able to gain the market share, and finally, much more details into the sales strategy, the B2B marketing strategy, the distribution model, and the pricing strategy for the company. Now moving to the next slide. Correct. So again, as we had seen in the final round, a lot of company had directly jumped into the sectors. They did not clearly present the logic based on which they are choosing the technologies or the sector. So, I'll take you over what our logic was. So we started with understanding which all different AI technologies are there, like machine learning, deep learning, NLP, neural networks, right? And then we chose some parameters, which are more market related or more tech related. And based on those parameters, we compared or benchmarked these different AI technologies. Now, from this benchmark score, I have a clear idea which are the more important AI technologies which have a future or which need low effort, right? Low effort and high output. Also, they have a substantial market size in the future. Now, next, I took different sectors available, which are the different sectors, and what is the impact of these top six technologies in each of the sector. Now, definitely, I'll be picking out the sectors where most of the technologies chosen have a higher impact. So now I have a clear idea, okay, which are the sectors that I need to focus on. Now we have shortlisted four sectors based on this, correct? As you can see from the dark blue color. Now the final step in this logic was we see what our internal capabilities are, what are our current tech stack looking like, what is our current client base looking like, and how does the external sector, how does the external industry looks like. And based on that, we decided to choose two sectors, that is BFSI and retail and e-commerce. Now we can move to the next slide. So I won't go into much detail of this slide. So basically, they also wanted a use case of of at least in two different sectors. So that is what we have presented over here. Use cases are over here. A lot of competitors in the final round, they had focused much more on this, right? However, this was just one part of question number two, right? So we decided to give less space to this and more space to other important questions. So moving to the next slide. Yeah. So since they had asked just for a marketing roadmap, a 5-year marketing roadmap, correct? However, how you market your product will totally depend on what different products you have, what different technologies you have, right? So we decided to create a comprehensive 5-year roadmap across four different domains. That is the tech they are going to focus on, product they are going to focus on, sales and marketing strategy. The entire idea was that the initial first year will be set upon integration and looking out for synergy, and as they go on for 5 years they will have a clear vision, they will have a clear leadership status. Also, as we go along, we'll start by going into the sectors which we previously recommended, and the focus on technologies that we have developed in the initial years. And as we move on, we'll start expanding into the adjacent sectors. Let's say you are into retail, e-commerce, maybe you could move into more of distribution or logistics, right? They are adjacent sectors. So this was the logic that we had used. Next question they had asked, unlocking 5x growth. So they wanted 5x growth for the startup. Since no data was given to us, we had to understand the technologies that we have chosen. We looked out for different AI related company, how their market share has evolved, how their revenues have evolved. We looked out for different technologies and different products that we are creating. What is the future scope of growth for those products? And based on that, taking some assumptions along the line, we decided to create this market share chart, and also added the detailed calculation. So we decided to embed Excel in for the detailed calculations. Yeah, we can move to the next slide now. This is again, in the question it was asked, okay, you need to identify the pricing strategy or the distribution strategy. So we started with a B2B buyer journey. How does a B2B buyer journey looks like? How will a client evaluate a firm, providing AI related services? And what all different strategies our startup can use to nudge the clients, or to make them more aware, make them more interested in our product, different strategies that they can be used. So this topic is itself broad enough to dedicate multiple slides to it, right? But we played very smartly. We decided to use a funnel, and in brief, we decided to put these strategies rather than going much into the details. We are just given basic keywords because there are other important areas to focus upon. Next, distribution model. So we compared a lot of distribution models available in the sector. So when you're into B2B sales in tech, right? So there are different distribution models that you can use, right? So we did a bit of research on that. What are distribution models? With distribution models make sense for this kind of startup also in the AI industry, and which distribution model will be used by you, as you go across the 5-year roadmap that we mentioned previously. Also, when it comes to pricing strategy, rather than mentioning which all pricing strategies are available, we went along and did which strategy will be best suitable for which kind of product, right? So let's say for risk assessment, a subscription model is more suitable, while if you're doing more of data analytics or data processing, a pay per use model will be usable, right? So that was our logic on deciding which pricing model to be used. Next slide. Yes. For business entities, suggest how operation would be generative tech embedded for achieving process efficiency and lower operating costs, right? So, this was one of the most important questions as per me overhead. This was also a differentiating factor in our slide. The reason being, our team felt that generative AI is, booming in that area, right? Also, you can see a lot of different companies coming up with case competitions related to generative AI. So we felt that we should definitely focus on this particular question. Also, our structure was entirely different from what other teams had done, and judges really appreciated it. So basically, we scored brownie points with the judges, through by answering these questions. And one or two teams, they definitely had missed this particular questions or did not go into much depth. So let's move to the next slide. So, since they have clearly asked, "Okay, how will you improve the operations, across for the startup, right?" So the logical approach was to analyze the value chain of the company, right from R&D to getting the clients, to providing them support, and post client support that is there. So a value chain is a clear answer that across the value chain we'll be deciding which generative AI use case can be deployed. We have just focused on one most important use case, right? What is the impact going to be? Because our focus was on lowering cost and improving the efficiency. We are, writing the impact, okay, how the impact is, of that technology is going to be. Whether you are taking your products or services faster to the market, whether there is saving in operations time, or there is some cost reduction there. How we are going to measure the success, and finally resource and risk that are there, right? Another interesting aspect that we use was, whenever we talk about AI, right, it is very important to focus on that every company is using responsible AI practice, right? So responsible AI practice, is a growing sort of segment, within the consulting industry. A lot of consulting industries are telling other companies how to use AI more responsibly, right? So from there, we picked this up. What are the different responsible AI practices that you can use, across each step of the value chain for the particular use case? Now, I'll hand over to Prakhar. He'll take over rest of the case study. Yeah, just to mention, this is a brief timeline that we mentioned. Across 12 months, in which different step of value chain, what is the stage going to look like. So this is basically a timeline, sort of, and what's different step you are going to take in the next 12 months to integrate AI into Zeta. So now I'll hand over to Prakhar.
Yeah, thank you, Vaibhav. I think the fourth question was dealing with HR practices and how the unified entity. So previously, if you look at the questions, it is more on product, marketing, strategy for the unified entity. And in this question, they were asking me specifically of how the unified entity would retain and hire skilled employees and HR practices, right? So here are HR courses that we took at IIM Lucknow were very important in terms of arriving at the arriving at the structure and how to go about in this question, right? So if you look at the slide, so we just dived into the question, right? So we had a plan of giving them information of what the HR strategy would look like in terms of for the unified entity, which is Raizada. The second part we asked about the HR best practices that are actually followed in the unified entity.
Prakhar, I
Hi,
think
am I audible?
there is some network issue from your side.
Okay. Is it still there?
It's better now.
Yes, better than before, but still there.
Just give me a second. I'll.
Yes, sure. So meanwhile, Vaibhav, there is a question from the participants
Okay.
that currently most of the case competitions are in the first round, right? So they are more focused on executive summary, which is a two-slide presentation. So
Correct.
any tips and tricks you can suggest for them, and any structure you can suggest so that they are able to crack this first round.
So, I also talk to a lot of people, who are doing Flipkart or let's say IDFC Bank competitions, correct?
Yes, yes,
As we mentioned earlier, right? Initially, we also had to submit a two-slider, right?
correct,
And based on that two-slider only, we decided to create this 10-slider PPT, right? So as you go on about, reading the different questions that are available, right? You need to prioritize which are the more important aspect, which are the more important questions, right? And if you are given a one slide, right, it is important to give more space to the important questions that are there, right? And the focus on the initial it is either an executive summary round, right, where you have to
right,
talk about everything that is given, or maybe it could be a sort of Flipkart like thing where they are just asking you two questions to be answered in the initial first round, right? So when they are asking, specifically giving two questions that are to be answered, that can be easily managed in a two-slider format, right?
correct,
While it is a competition like Wipro, where you have to submit a two-slider, right? So you need to prioritize which are the important aspects, right? So financial analysis is something we won't be doing, in the initial slider. However, we'll just give a hint of, that. Okay, this is something that we have definitely covered. Market research or expert interviews is something we'll deprioritize. That we don't have enough space for that in two-slider. However, choosing the right technology, as you can see, right, HR strategy can be deprioritized. More about marketing roadmap, tech roadmap, that definitely needs to be prioritized, and giving a clear logic why these two startups would be merging, right? The logic behind that needs to be certainly highlighted. So based on just like that, we prioritize which are the more important aspects. We give them more space, and give lesser space to other things. But we make sure to be comprehensive and cover everything.
yes. Okay, I think comprehensive answer from your side. If I can check with the Prakhar, I think he is back on the video, so we can continue with the
Am I
presentation.
audible right now? And the internet is fine, right?
Yeah.
Yes, yes, that's fine.
Right. Sorry for the inconvenience. So I was talking about the layout of the slide as well. So first, we wanted to give a HR strategy for the unified entity. Here, we were focusing on how to fill the senior leadership roles, how to focus on broad-based developments, and also collaboration with partnerships. Right. So this we identified how to identify the structure was basis our interviews that we did with some of HR professionals in the tech companies. So and that's how we arrived at this structure. Now, the second part is the HR best practices. So we also wanted to give information on the HR best practices that are followed in tech companies and major tech companies, and give that information. And basis that build our solution or answer to the fourth question, right? And the third is actually our own answer. So if you look at, we identified a product HR life cycle and divided that into acquisition, recruitment, employee engagement, and retention. And basis that, which is the basic structure of HR life cycle that we are taught in our HR classes, we give solutions in each of the broad-based buckets for the unified entity, right? So if you look, even if you look at the fourth question and the layout of the slide, It's not just giving bullet point answers to what are the HR best practices. We actually followed a structure. We conducted expert interviews to answer the sort of HR strategy. Then we give certain information of what are the HR best practices followed in the current environment, and then give our own specific answer for the unified entity by actually following the HR life cycle journey, right? So this is how, in a structured manner, we were able to answer the fourth question. And even if you look at the layout of the whole slide, right from the first slide till this slide, and even in the future slides, we followed the same layout in terms of aesthetics, in terms of color patterns, in terms of we have given a content structure at the bottom, so that a person who is actually reading or uh, seeing us giving us presentation, he knows what is the actual flow of the whole PPT, and where in that flow we are actually are while we are presenting that particular slide, right? So just by reading the the bottom line, you can make a sense of the flow of the PPT, and that we are in the second last slide of HR best practices in the current slide that we are presenting, right? And in the topmost slide, we have given two headers. One is the major header, and the second is the summary of the whole slide. So the summary of the whole slide is developing a balanced human and EA strategy by creating a comprehensive data-driven talent ecosystem, right? So this is sort of a summary slide of what this whole slide is about. So just by reading the top two headers, you can make a certain hint or get a certain hint of what we are trying to present, right? So these are important elements while we are presenting or making a deck and presenting in case competitions, especially corporate case competitions. So that is also an important element in it. So now we come on to the last question of it, which is, so we have talked about product, operation, strategy, HR. The final thing is about finance, right? So if you look at all the five questions, it's about we are building a new company, and for a new company we have to strategizing each of the important functions. So we started with the overall strategy, then we give them product strategy, then we give them HR strategy, and now we are giving them a funding strategy or how to raise finances, right? So this is our interpretation of the whole question, whole five questions. And if you see our interpretation, it's not just a one-to-one interpretation of just the question and answer. It's a unified interpretation of what we are doing in the larger scheme of things, right? So the fifth question is regarding funding. So in the funding, we just didn't, again similar to the previous approach, we just didn't deep dive into the question straight away. We gave them a background of what is happening in the space in that particular domain that we are talking about. We give them best practices, we give them a lot of background information basis which we are actually building our own specific solution for the unified entity, right? So in this slide, we are actually, this slide is not actually answering the fifth question, but it's actually giving you a lot of sense of what is the recent funding with respect to both the global stage and the India stage. What are the challenges that the companies face while raising funding in Gen AI space, right? And what is the way forward? What are the funding channels that other companies leverage? So this is the background information basis which we give the templatized or a company specific answer in the next slide. So this slide talks about that, and this is actually the last slide of the exact funding strategy for Zeta. So the previous slide was the background, and this is the bespoke solution for that particular unified entity. We start with giving them information of what what stage we should be targeting basis the current revenues, and then we give them okay, basis the benchmarking and the information, they should, you raise this particular amount at this particular valuation basis the revenue metrics and valuation metrics that we got from our secondary research by doing research on platforms like Traction and other funding reports, right? Then we moved on to the second most important part of what are the funding channels, right? In this, we give them the funding channels and which particular investors this particular company can go to for raising the fund financing. and the also the subsequent action plan for investor relationship. So we identified during our primary research that when a particular company is raising finances, it's actually investor relations is an important aspect. And if you look at a lot of listed entities, they have a separate division for investor relations. So from that insight, we got to know that this is actually also an important part to actually give in this particular slide. And these sort of nitty gritties or nitbits actually separate the winning PPT from the rest of the other PPTs. So I clearly remember in the national semi-final round, this actually all the slide was appreciated because of the depth of financing we went into, right? So we just didn't give them okay, raise X valuation, raise X amount at X Y valuation, right? We gave them a detailed KPIs to monitor fundraising success. We gave them investor relationship. We actually gave them a lot of monitoring mechanisms and strategy to raise financing, right? So there's a lot of background information involved in our solution, and with those solutions we give them I would say the level 2 solutions as well in terms of monitoring mechanism, investor relationship, which actually separated our PPT from the rest of the other PPTs and actually helped us in winning it, right? So it's not just in this slide, it's actually if you look at all the previous slides, we have followed a similar approach, right? So actually this is the end of our PPT in terms of actual PPT. I'll just give you a brief glance of the appendix as well. So we gave them appendix, which is actually the slides or the background information which we use to arrive at some of the solutions. So this is the potential impact of AI for each sector. So if you remember what Vaibhav talked about, the selection of sectors, that sort of solution came from this particular slide. Um, this is the fund. This is the slide pertaining to the fundraising success for the unified entity, right? So there's a lot of extra information which we have given in the annexure, right? I think that is about it in terms of, and this is the slide on the appendix in terms of the in-depth interviews of major stakeholders, right? So this actually gives an idea to the judges of what kind of experts we have consulted or what kind of primary research we have done to arrive at our solutions, which is actually also an important aspect to put in your PPTs, right? Because you cannot just globe your way to particular solutions, right? So this is the last slide. I think this is the end of it. We had 5 slides for appendix.
Thank you, Prakhar. Thank you, Vaibhav, for such a detailed presentation and showing the students about Wipro B-PRO challenge and what were the ideas and solutions that you have came up during this case competition. So just moving on to Q&A session. So one of the questions was, since in the current scenario there are many case competition related to Gen AI part, and you have actually worked with the Gen AI part in your case competition as well. So what are the resources, ideas, if any ideas that you can share with these participants to learn more about Gen AI and build a solution and crack a case competition on that?
Sure. How we actually went on about, in our time also, there were a lot of Gen AI related case form. Like there was Wipro number one, there was EY, Keep Gemini, Accenture, Samsung, right, and a few more, right. So this AI thing is gonna stay, right. Even a lot of other companies are gonna come and ask you for AI, right. So number one, when we had formed a team, right, we always used to divide, work amongst ourselves, right. Given Prakhar's background, right? So Prakhar would be more suitable to talk about financials or the the funding aspect, right? In this particular case, I worked on the tech part and the marketing part, right? While Pragati, who has previously worked in mergers and acquisition in a consulting internship, right? So she was more suitable to talking about mergers and the HR strategy and the overall structure, right? So based on how comfortable you are with the topic, you should divide that so that not everyone has to focus on the AI thing or the Gen AI thing, right? So let's say if you know that a particular case form is about AI, right? Maybe you can talk to someone who has a tech background. You can work with them, right? That is one of the solution, right? Now, how to upskill yourself about Gen AI, right? So apart from this, when we were doing other case competitions specifically related to Gen AI, right? We went and read what Gen AI is all about, right? So we saw a number of webinars on YouTube available. A lot of experts were giving talks. Apart from that, reports are available, from different consulting firms or tech firms. So if I remember correctly, ECG was very big on Gen AI at that time. So a lot of articles were available. How to incorporate Gen AI into different business domains. And if you go to tech companies like Capgemini or Accenture, you will find a lot of articles on what is Gen AI, how the things work, what is the backend, how does the LLM look like, right? What different models are deployed, how the entire Gen AI structure looks like. So that way, reading reports and different articles and blogs, or maybe some YouTube videos, that will help you upskill yourself. And then you'll be able to think, how can I use this particular piece of technology into the business problem. Yeah, so that is what we do.
Adding on to that, what Vaibhav said, one of the most important part of a case comp is the primary research. So whenever you have been given a question, we didn't actually dive deep into the solution. We just took 1 or 2 days to the read about from different reports, KPMG reports, BCG reports, McKinsey reports. Did our own Google searches. Uh, if it's possible, read some of the research papers to identify the nitty gritties of the technology, and then we sort of, and this was on our own, so that you as a person, even though I am not working on that particular part in the case competition, I'm aware about what is Gen AI, what are the tech use cases. And then after 1 day, all three of us used to come back with our own understanding, with our own ideas, and then sort of dive deep into the solution and how to go about, right? So it's not just, if when Vaibhav is saying that I did financing, it's not just I did the whole financing. Vaibhav and Pragati both were involved in how to go about the financing slide, and similarly vice versa with the Gen AI slides or the HR slides, which both of them made, right? So I was aware of what to put, what not to put, because I also did my own primary research on those questions. But when it comes to finding the details or fine tuning, that was the portion that Vaibhav did specifically on Gen AI, right? So actually, primary research and your own understanding from reports, journals, and research papers is actually important, and not straight deep diving into the solution, right? Because no one is really aware about Gen AI, right? Gen AI is not taught about in MBA colleges, right? So we had to do our own primary research and secondary research.
Correct, correct. I think B school should also include Gen AI as a course subject nowadays. Yes. So moving on to the next question. So any framework suggestion or framework resources that you can suggest to the participants, since you have used a lot of frameworks like value chain analysis and other analysis. So what are the resources or framework suggestions that you can give?
Right. So I think value chain is something that we sort of use a lot in our presentation, not just in this case competition, but other case competitions as well. Because most likely a case competition is about how to structure a particular company, or how can a company grow into a particular domain or new business opportunities, right? So value chain analysis is one framework which is very important for those. Then if it's a competition related to mergers and acquisition or new business opportunities, then there is another matrix framework. I'm forgetting the name of the framework. There's a BCG matrix in terms of diamond, star, dog framework in terms of growth opportunities. Then there is a framework of new business opportunities, of how to go into new markets, the market entry strategies, or market entry consulting case interviews that we do it at MBS. These are the top 3 4 frameworks that we sort of employ. And even when it comes to marketing, then there is a marketing funnel. There is a B2, as we already showed. There's a B2B customer journey is another framework that is very heavy in marketing, right? Customer journey frameworks, B2B marketing frameworks. So these are the top frameworks that come to mind, depending on what kind of questions is asked in the case competition. And Vaibhav can add if I miss
Yeah,
some
sure.
anything.
So I'll give you a more generic sort of approach, right? So it's not always necessary that you use a framework that is readily available, right? So let's say you have to talk about growth strategy, correct? So the first thing I'll do is I'll go over internet. I'll read what growth strategy is. Maybe I'll try to find some sort of articles available on it, from top consulting firms, right? Then get a fair idea what growth strategy means, right? If I come across an interesting framework that can be used, I'll definitely deploy that. Otherwise, I'll start creating something of my own, right? And as Prakhar mentioned, names of some framework, right? So value chain is there, right? But we are not directly mentioning that we are doing a value chain analysis, right? Or these are more generic sort of things which are deployed everywhere, like a HR life cycle or a B2B buyer journey, right? A framework like BCG metrics, or you are doing, let's say, pestle analysis. I'll never tell the judges that I am doing a pestle analysis. I'll sort of mask it into some other structured way, right? Or BCG metrics is just sort of a matrix structure, right? So I'll tell them, okay, this is what we have done. We have analyzed the different business, different product lines of the company, and we have grouped them together into different matrix based on these two factors, right? So I'm never going to tell them, okay, I'm using this BCG matrix directly, right? So always try to mask these famous frameworks that you're using.
Mm, great answer. Moving on to the last questions. Participants are facing some difficulties in building a roadmap. So, could you give us some brief ideas on how to go about this 1 year or 2 year roadmap journey? So,
Um, okay.
yes, please
Can we
continue.
go back to the previous slide, Prakar, if possible? Yeah, correct, right? So, number one, you have to define, let's say you have been asked a 1 year roadmap, correct?
Mm,
It's a very small time horizon, to actually do something, in business terms, right? Because even if you're launching a product, right, a lot of research goes into it, right? A lot of testing that needs to be done, right? So, you'll start by breaking down. I mean, it will definitely be hypothetical, timeline sort of, right? And it will be very crunched, right? So you don't definitely need to be particularly exact with it, or there won't be a lot of questions why you are taking 3 months to develop a project, or to launch something, right? So let's say you have been asked to make a 1 year roadmap, right? So how I would go about doing a 1 year roadmap, I'll be doing the same things, but the timeline would be much more smaller, right? Or maybe my logic will change, right? Rather than focusing on growing into the adjacent sectors, I'll be focusing on the sectors which I already am currently available in. So I'll start by breaking down the 12 months time period available, and then you list down different activities that are required to be done for the growth, right? Let's say
mm,
you're launching a application, right? So the first thing that you're going to be doing is some sort of market research that needs to be done. Then defining the product market fit or finding the gap in the market.
mm,
Then the actual development of the product. Then the final launch. What marketing activities you are doing. What growth strategies you are using for your product. What retention you are doing, right? So I list down all the different activities, and then I'll sort of put them in a timeline things. And I'll, if details are required, right, or you need some sort of a matrix like structure where you are mentioning different domains, that is
mm.
another thing you can do, because there'll certainly be overlap in different domains. Let's say tech, marketing, product, there'll definitely be overlap, right? So this sort of structure works well. Anything to add, Pakar, on this?
Yeah, so I mean, when it comes to roadmap, it's a lot to do with common sense. So it's not, there's no structure to building a roadmap. It's just what is your existing idea and how it can be implemented. So let's say if it's a growth case or a growth question, then if it's a 1 year or 2 year strategy, then you would be only focusing on marketing or growing the market of the existing products, either to an allied customer segment or to the existing customer segment. Because if you are entering into a new business, then there is not enough time of 2 years to enter into a business segment and then grow in it. Or maybe you can just hint that okay, we might be looking at entering into a new segment, but we would have to do R&D for that in the first 2 years. But let's say if the question is giving you key draft a roadmap of 5 years, then in the 5 years there is a lot of scope to actually market your product to either the existing market, but also enter into a new market, do your R&D, and scale that particular product in the new market, right? So it's a lot to do in what kind of timelines is asked of you, and then also stretch your idea a little bit given the timelines. So 1 or 2 years you just build your own idea, do R&D, and give actual timelines. And if it's a longer time period, then you can actually flesh out your idea and then give metrics and growth and expansion numbers and reasons, right? So it's a lot to do with common sense and what your existing idea is.
So that was the last question from the comment section. So I would like to thank Vaibhav and Prakhar for collaborating with Grad partners and sharing your experiences on Wipro B3 and other case competitions. And we would like to host you again in further case competitions like Mondelez Masters you have Grad, and Capgemini is also. And I also like to thank all the participants for watching this live session. I must believe that you have learned something from this live session. So thank you everyone, and subscribe to our channel to learn more about this CaseCom master classes. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Abhay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.